Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن قوا أنفسكم وأهلكم نارا. This is a verse in Quran. Allah said, save yourself and your family from the fire. This particular ayat in Quran, it has a very deep meaning behind it, and within it, it deals with some of the issues or solutions with issues that people find themselves into. Today, I'd like to address, or tonight, I'd like to address what are some of the divorce problems in the African American Muslim community and some of the issues related to marital discord, which is known in the Arabic language and fiqh and nushuz, marital discords. I want to mention this because within the black community amongst the Muslims, there is a high rate of divorce. And being fair and just, we can say in other Muslim community, despite their nationality, divorce is something that exists in every community. But within the African American Muslim community, the divorce is at a high rate. And some of the means or some of the issues related to why divorce is at a high rate, some of the issues that are not being talked about, is because the reason why divorce is at a higher rate and there's a lot of marital problems within the black community, in the Muslim community, African American Muslim community, this is because it's easy for individuals to get married. And I'm not saying that marriage should be hard, but within a certain spectrum or a certain group of the African American Muslim community, there is a culture within the African American culture. There's a culture within the culture. Some of the cultures within the cultures in the African American Muslim community, I would describe maybe two of them that is apparent, but some people might not see it. One of the parent cultures within the African American Muslim culture is that there is a culture and its perspective from those Muslims in the African American Muslim community that are maybe second and third generation Muslims. All right. So those second and third generation of Muslim have a different culture with them, a different outlook with them compared to the Muslim in the African American Muslim community that converts into Islam. All right. So there's two type of cultures within the African American culture in the community. So for example, I find my years of being Muslim now within the black community, the African American Muslim community, that those Muslims who are second and third generation Muslim, maybe their mother or their father converted to Islam and they were born into an Islamic family or Muslim household, despite how much knowledge they have or how much they implemented Islam, but if they acknowledge Islam is their culture, Islam is their way of life, and it's part of their culture, then they grew up a certain way. For those Muslims who converted to Islam, most likely in our times now, maybe in the last 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, that convert into Islam, meaning that they accepted the faith and it been part of their life, they didn't grow up being Muslim. So that group who converted, there's a certain social problems with them that needs to be addressed or we're going to talk about. Within the African American Muslim community, those who are second, third generation Muslims, that most likely there is some social issues within the African American community in general, like not getting married single mothers without a children, no father or fatherless, and the African American community that convert that are been Muslims second or two or three generation Muslims, that's like a no. So you don't find many of them who are second, third generation Muslims from the African American culture. There's not really that much of children being born out of wedlock. So when they came to Islam, or their parents came to Islam, right, or their grandparents came to Islam, that this is something they rid of in their culture, and they married within other African American Muslim communities and individuals who are similar to them, meaning that they're second, third generation Muslims, and they understand the value of marriage. So you can find some of those older Muslims who have children and grandchildren, those converts who have children and grandchildren, they all Muslim, and their family, they have somewhat of a concept of what is a family structure, and to the best of their knowledge, that they try to uphold this particular family structure. So, for example, if you go into some of these communities where they're from, some of the non-Muslims would say about this Muslim family that are second and third generation Muslims, that they would say, yeah, I know so and so family, they are Muslim. Oh yeah, their daughters wear hijab. His name is Muhammad. Oh, they don't celebrate Christmas. They don't have boyfriends and girlfriends, or they don't eat pork, right? So even for non-Muslims who see them, they recognize that these individuals' cultures are Muslim. So that mother and father who may be converting to Islam, maybe in the 70s, 60s, or the 70s, or the early 80s, or the 80s, and they have like second generation, third generation Muslims, children and grandchildren who are adults, that you'll find that they understand the family structure. So what other peoples are going through in the African American communities that are not Muslim, and that was not holding family sacred, you'll find that they were struggling with the reality of not being married. All right. So so we mentioned that. Now with the reverts of the last 20 years who converted to Islam, if some of them came from a household that they convert to Islam, their family is not Muslims. Maybe they come from a single family household, single woman household, or they come up in a society where their family members are not married, their parents are not married. It comes a custom that people are not being married and having boyfriends and girlfriends. When they convert now or to revert in Islam, and if they didn't have that example or that role model inside their household where they have two parents in the house and they're married, then if they don't have that, then they don't have that example of how a mother and father should be, how should a husband and wife be, because they didn't have that example. So when they convert into Islam, all right, in some cases, or they revert in Islam, that sometimes, many times, that they still have some of these social thinking, social behaviors, culture that are from the African American culture that has no morals, that is based on corruption, that's based on feminism, that's based on a male culture, where the African American, our culture for the non-Muslims, where it's a homemonger, come from a homemonger culture where men just be with any woman, don't care what happened to them, don't care what's the results of their decisions, don't care about that. The homemonger community, meaning coming from the culture or the mindset of a homemonger or a whore, all right, and they convert into Islam, and sometimes they don't remove these things from them. You'll find that a lot of them marry and divorce. All right, you'll find a lot of them who don't have those examples of two parents in a house, mother and father, two family household, mother and father, husband and wife. They didn't come out of this type of household or this type of family. Sometimes they also don't have this role model, so they also marry and divorce. And Now they're Muslim and they practice in Islam. They're practicing Islam like how their relationships were before they were Muslim, meaning that when they get married in Islam, they see Islam say, okay, you can't fornicate. So if he was a person or she was a person who grew up and they didn't have any discipline related to their sexual habits, right? They didn't have any discipline and they just had boyfriends and girlfriends here and there, and then they become Muslim and they decide to get married to fulfill that obligation. Then what happens? Sometimes they get married just to fill the sexual obligation, not looking at the whole picture of what marriage means, what is the Islamic responsibility of marriage. And if they don't have that role model and they just marrying to fulfill their sexual desire, then most likely that marriage is not going to last, because when it's related to sex, wherever your desire is related to sex, is going to come and go. It's going to be there. The person, you might like them for this minute, for a couple of months or a year. It might be exciting, but sooner or later it's going to die out. And that's when you find that all of the problems in the relationship, it gets heavier. It gets a burden for the man or it gets a burden for the woman, and they call it quits. Just like if they was dating and something happened in the dating scene or the dating relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend, and they just went their separate ways, finding new partners. This is chasing hawa. So when they become Muslim and they still have this type of mind setting, they still have this foul social behavior and it's not uprooted, then this is where you see now that this behavior come from marrying, divorcing a lot, having a lot of marital problems, and not having the Islamic solutions, or not fixing their marital problems because they married for the wrong reason, meaning sexually, right? You find some cases where the woman, and I've seen, as I've been an imam for a few years, and I worked in a few masjids for a few years, and I gave dawah in many masjids while I live in New York, in Queens, New York. You'll find sometimes that when people come and sit down for marital problems, and it's from that Black African American Muslim community, me as the imam, I could tell you that when they come for their marital issues, the first thing is, if it's the man coming in, if it's the woman complaining, it's divorce. That's the first thing they're looking for. The woman comes in, she says, Imam, I want a talaq, I want a kulla, right? This is my experience as being an imam. When it's the Muslim who come from a Muslim culture, right? Muslim country, Islamic society, Muslim society, and I see them and they have marital problems, and the woman's coming and asking for divorce. Most likely the woman, she has marital problems, she's looking for somebody to be a mediator. All right, she's looking for somebody to help the husband out in his problem, or to help her in her complaints, somebody to get the message to him so they could give him some advice, so they could get some marital counseling, right? But when you look at some of the African American Muslims, particularly the youths, is that when they come in, especially for the reverts, when they come in, the first thing they're looking for is divorce from the sisters, the majority, and from the brothers, right? Because they deal with the Islamic marriages like they was dealing with their boyfriends and girlfriends, because that is something they became accustomed to, right? And they never mentally dealt with that. And when they became Muslim, they never really dealt with that. You understand? They never dealt with these type of things. And then when they learn about it in their religion, they're learning about it, they're reading about it, but they have no role models sometimes in their communities where they can see successful marriage in some cases, not every case. All right. Back to some of the African American Muslim now who Muslim for second, third generation, have children and grandchildren who are Muslim. Now you'll find some of them in their marriages that they also have divorce, right? And I could sit back and I could look and analyzing that some of them that were successful in getting married and staying married, is that their father, that sister father, when she was looking to get married, she put conditions on the husband, right? So I know some brothers, for example, they meet African American sisters and they want to get married, and they're like, the sister, she's like born Muslim, she comes from a Muslim family, her mother and father is Muslim, and the father say, well, you to marry my daughter, you have to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G in place. Then some of the brothers who hear this, they're like, no, I don't want that. That's too much. And he go marry something that's easier for him to marry so he could fulfill that desire. But in reality, when the father said, I need to have A, B, C, D in place, A, B, C, D is all related to having a home, a job, finance, home, place to live in, able to maintain the woman, the household, and the children, and then able to fulfill his religious obligation and making sure he understands the religion enough where if he have children with this woman now, that they're able to raise a Islamic household, and most likely their offspring, their children that come from the marriage are going to continue down the line generation being Muslim and so on and so forth. And if the father see that the man, the suitor, this is not able to fulfill this, he would say no, for example, right? I met many brothers who got married like this, or I met many brothers who met African American Muslim families, been Muslim for a generation, and they had sit downs for marriage, and it didn't work out in their favor, or did work out in their favor, but there was a lot of stipulations made, right? Because the stipulations that were made was to ensure that, hey, you're going to be married for a while, You ain't gonna marry this woman today and bring her back to my house tomorrow, basically, like divorce tomorrow. No, you're gonna be married, right? And you're gonna stay married by the permission of Allah. So in these cases, when it comes to divorce, when it comes to, for them now, for what I've seen as a pattern for the ones who've been Muslim for generations from the African American community, they at least have Islamic identity in place, and there's more of an understanding of family structure. Then somebody could say, well, yeah, Abul Bara, I myself is a second or third generation Muslim, and I'm black, and I can tell you that I have family members, female sisters in my family, they've been divorced, right? They've been married a few times or divorced, right? Then that type of setting or that particular situation, then that is another discussion. And that discussion is, okay, if I look for the reverts who convert to Islam from the African Americans Muslim community, and I look at the Muslims who've been 2 or 3 generation Muslims from the African American community, and they're also getting married and divorced at a higher rate, then I turn around and say is that they are affected by the society they live in, all right? And the society that they in particular live in is a society where they are very much adapted the way and the thinking of the non-Muslims in the society, when everything in the marriage is based on materialism, and everything in the marriage is based on what we say in Arabic, an-naniya. An-naniya means nafsi, ana bas, ana faqat. All about me and my space. And this is something that African Americans in general is something, issue that they have, whether it's about marriage, whether it's about relationships, whether it's about building a community, whether it's about networking and building and taking responsibilities that no one wants to step up. It is a selfishness where everybody is about individualism. That's the next issue now. If I look into the African American Muslim community, whether it's from those who were born Muslim second, third generation, or those who convert into the faith and they're having a high divorce because its marriages is based on ananiya, ana boss, myself only. Individualism. It's not based on family or working together as a group. And this is something that the black African American community as a whole, Muslim, Christian, atheists, Yahudi, Jew, whatever faith they follow, whatever religion they follow, a Gnostic, everybody in the African American community, this is something that is suffering from today, is individualism, practicing individualism and not practicing togetherness. So this is another reason why there's a high rate of divorce amongst the African American Muslim community, because we are practicing individualism. So now the husband and the wife, they say they married in Islam. When it comes to now why they getting divorced, the woman's gonna say, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, and he doesn't allow me, or I can't do it, so I want divorce. Or the man's gonna say, I want to divorce her because I want this to happen and that to happen, and she's not doing what I want, and I no longer feel comfortable with her. So everything you hear is about I. It's not about us. It's not about we. And when they're getting married, they're coming into the marriage with the individualism. I in my space and not us. If you look at Arabiya, the word is zawaj. The word zawaj, if you look at Arabiya, or we can say not nikah, because nikah has another meaning. It means marriage or marital sex. It means all these things. The halal marriage or halal lawful sex. But when we say in Arabic as zawj or zawaj, this means a pairing. All right. Even in the Arabic language, the word zawaj or zawj and zawja, the root of the word is about pairing together, things in pair, all right? As dual, as two things coming together, all right? Even the word in khulla, which means the woman asking for divorce. Khulla is like khulla. It's like to release, but it really is like when you cover something up. Marriage in Islam is like covering. So when a woman asks for a divorce, the covering meaning they both are covered together, right? When you ask for divorce, it means you're freeing yourself. You're coming free from the cover, meaning for the marriage, right? So even when you look at some of the main reason that caused them, for the young people who are getting divorced in our community, especially the African American Muslim community, is to build upon selfishness. And they're dealing with each other in their marriage like a person would deal with their boyfriend and their girlfriend. And as soon as something they don't like, or they meet somebody new, or something doesn't go their way, it could be small and minute, they divorce. It's like their marriages are just like the marriages of celebrities. Who have marriages like us? Celebrities do, right? If you look at some of the celebrity marriages, they're married for a month, a year, and then they divorce. The celebrity marriage, the Muslim, African American Muslim community marriages are no different from the celebrity marriages, because they are practicing individualism, and it's about selfishness and fulfilling one's desire. And when somebody can't get that no more, or they find something better, they no longer a pair, so they're only married temporarily. Right? Temporarily. This is because individualism and not understanding in Islam the marriage. Now, what is some of the solutions? Some of the solutions for the issue is not just reading a book. Many people read books and own books, and they have problems, and they read things and don't know how to implement it. Some of the things is I think that it's needed in the community is having classes, especially just for the women, about Islamic marriages and everybody's rights, not just the woman's rights in Islam. Everybody's rights, because when I hear marriages, or I see people have marital problems and they start talking to the woman, is all she talks about is what the woman's rights are. When I ask her, there's rights for the husband that you must fulfill, she doesn't know them, or it's not clear to her. But she knows that, he has to pay bills. He has to pay bills and give me money, and my money is my money, and his money is my money. That's all she knows. About fulfilling her obligations to him and what are his rights, she doesn't have a clue about them, and that's why in some cases they get divorced, or the opposite. The man only knows that the woman must listen to him and obey him, but he doesn't know some of the rights that he must fulfill with her, and some of her rights over him, and some of the obligation he must fulfill, and some of the ethics ethics and etiquettes of these things, like not hanging out all night or behaving in like you're a single man, meaning that you go and come as you please, and there's no consideration about the women, right? So maybe in another talk, we could talk about some of the solutions and what are some of the solutions to these issues before they get married. Because I think in America, in African American culture, I think since the 80s, since the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, since the women's revolution, and feminism has become has definitely impacted American society. It definitely has impacted the female mind setting in the home, and that impact as the feminists and the feminist movement in America have also broken up homes, right? Has broken up homes where people don't know their roles anymore, right? Don't know their roles anymore. And that also impacts society that we live in today. And we will end with that. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa ashhadu wa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. And if anybody wants to any follow-up videos on this particular topic, you can always follow me on my YouTube page. And I have a YouTube page, and you could just subscribe to my YouTube page. Barakallahu fikum.